Good morning.
How's it going?
Good. It's a little early here, so a little tired. But yes, I'm excited for today's
sacrifices.
episode.
The sacrifices that ChayaLeah makes for all of you folks out there.
Exactly. Yes. Not simple. It's true. But we kicked my dad off today, so sorry if you tune in only to hear him. This is not your episode, but you might learn something from us anyway.
We should measure and see what happens to the listening audience if when we start off with that. Does it affect the audience at all?
Yeah,
does the numbers go from 2,000 people to 5 because they only care about listening to your dad?
But you see, that's the kind of actual data that people should look for. I will run away from that. I don't want to know. I don't have enough self-confidence to see those kinds of numbers. I just have to believe that everybody listens because they love all three of us, and it doesn't matter what combination.
That's a good way to do it. That's the only way to go. It's the only way to go through life, really.
It's true.
With a false sense of security.
It's true, but I'll say something that I wouldn't normally say this, but yesterday I had a really difficult thing happen at work where something just uncomfortable happened at work for me. And I called my dad on the way home. We're just everyone who listens to this episode already kind of to this podcast knows the dynamic I have with my father. We're very close and we joke and tease each other, but we're not the kind of family that have deep emotional conversations. We're just not that. We laugh at everything and we're very cynical. But yesterday, I just had this really heavy thing on me. So I called my dad and I told him about it. And he honestly blew me off a little bit. He was like, "Oh, everyone has hard days and, it's fine. Everyone will forget about it in a few months and who cares?" And I was like, okay. And I sort of went on with my day, but I was a little, disappointed. Well, he called me back an hour later, actually, which is extremely unusual. And he said, "I have to just say, when you told me your story, it really triggered something that happened to me when I was younger and when I was working in a different job. And it was really hard for me to hear you say that story, tell me that story because it hurt me, because it happened to me and I know how it feels." And he told me the story that happened to him. He's like, "I've never told anybody that story before." And it was just hard for me to hear my child feeling the same hurt that I felt all those years ago. I literally didn't know what to do. I'm like, okay, we don't have feelings. I don't know how to process this right now, but it was a very special moment, I have to say. So, I'm not sure why I'm sharing that right now, but anyway, it was a nice moment.
That's great. But I could see if that's not par for the course, then you might be a little bit, taken aback by how do I respond to this exactly?
But it's a good teaching moment because sometimes I know with my own kids, I don't know if you have this, but when they're going through something hard, it's just so hard for me. And I don't know, not to make it about me, but it's hard to support them when you're hurting also, and so totally. Sometimes they just need you to say "I've been there. I know what that feels like. And I feel for you." Sometimes that's all you need to hear,
Totally.
They don't need us to solve everything, but at least to know that your parent has also been in that situation and felt that way. So
Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's a lonely feeling when you're a kid and you feel there's no one else who's ever experienced this before. So there's no one you can turn to. Yeah. It's true. It's true. Now, when you're in your mid 40s, I guess maybe,
right.
Maybe it's the same situation.
Yeah, I guess I haven't really grown up that much, but yes, it's true.
Fair point.
Yeah.
Fair point.
All right. So what are we doing?
Today, by the time this comes out, it'll probably be a couple of months ago, but a little while ago, we did an episode on the Harrison Report.
Right.
Which, if you haven't listened to that yet, you might want to go back and listen to that episode. If you don't want to, you don't have to. But long story short, the Harrison Report was the outcome of a reports that President Truman had received right after the end of World War II, or at least the end of the European theater of World War II, that the Jews, DPs, the displaced persons, were being mistreated. And he hired this guy, Earl Harrison, to write this report. that kind of validated, yes, the Jews are being mistreated, and here are the changes you need to make, yada, 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 which General Eisenhower took into council, and he actually made a lot of the changes. He was very responsive to the changes that the Harrison report recommended. One of the recommendations also of the Harrison report was that the British should lift their immigration restrictions on Jews in Palestine, which from the 1939 white paper limited Jewish immigration to 75,000 immigrants over 5 years.
Which is nothing.
So it's nothing.
Yeah.
And so the Harrison report came out and said you should allow immediately 100,000 Jews to enter the Palestine Mandate. And so when the prime minister at the time of England was Clement Attlee, and he basically said, what any good bureaucrat does, he says, we're going to form a commission to review it. So he formed in conjunction with President Truman something called the Anglo-American Committee of Inquiry. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, a couple of comments I'll make about this before we get too far started. I've asked several people who are more knowledgeable, at least I respect their opinions on these things, and who I think are being more knowledgeable about the history of Israel and the various documents around this issue that have come out. Nobody I spoke with, I asked about, had heard of this report, which was shocking to me, because it's a fascinating report, and I'd encourage everyone. We'll link to it so you can read it for yourself. But we're going to talk.
I don't know if I'm one of those people that you respect, but I've never heard of it.
You were one of the people I asked. Of course, you didn't know. Okay,
fine. Yeah, so, and I have never heard. I'm being honest. I have never heard of it.
Don't worry. Well, nobody I asked had. Now, I'm not saying I have access to the foremost scholars on this, but the people I respect had not heard of this.
Right.
So I think this is going to be an interesting episode to sort of go through this, because their perspective on this is very timely for when it was released. So the committee was established in November of 1944. They delivered the report on April 20th, 1946, almost exactly a year after VE Day. And so the members of the committee were split 50-50 between the Americans and the British. I won't go through all of the names of everybody involved. The only notable person I think that some people might know is FDR Jr. So FDR's son was on this committee.
Oh, interesting.
Everybody else is kind of just, obviously important people for the time, but I don't think there's anybody particularly interesting. Overall, I think it's a fair assessment to say that the people on the American side of the committee were pro-Zionist, and the people on the British side of the committee were pro-Arab.
Oh,
in general, I think that's a fair assessment of. And obviously, there were, I think it was 5 or 6 people each side. So there's obviously some variation there, but I think in general it's a fair assessment. Not
much has changed.
It's true.
If we were going to have a committee today, it would probably be similar lines.
I think that's true. So before I get into the report, one overall comment about this is the report is very much a just the facts, ma'am, kind of report. They don't really go into the history too much of this. I should also mention, basically what they did was they went to the region, they interviewed the relevant Zionist leaders, the relevant Arab leaders, and just sort of, did sort of an interview all these people, visited the area, et cetera, all the things you would expect.
Right.
But the report was, I thought, very fair from the standpoint of they didn't really try to add a lot of color to their findings. They just sort of stated, here's what we heard.
Right.
And so you could look at some of the parts of the report and say, well, they kind of ignored this thing or that thing that is relevant to the commentary they made. But what I would say is they do it consistently, and I think they do it for both sides.
Okay.
So in some parts of the report, I think they come off as a little bit Pollyannish, but I think that's just how they decided to approach the report.
Okay.
So
you're saying not very political, like you don't get a bias or a lot of
I don't
politics and okay.
Yeah. Thank you. That's what I was looking at. That's the fair summary. I think it seems like they really tried their best to do a fair assessment of the situation without adding in too much bias, because as you can imagine, right? Both sides have their perspective, and they do a good job including both sides' perspectives, but they don't add a lot of the history behind the analyzing the opinions of the different groups. Okay. Fortunately for our listeners, I will help you with that, because this actually led me down a bunch of rabbit holes that I thought were interesting. So we'll do some assessment of the report, and then there's a couple of areas of the report that I think are particularly interesting that we'll do a little bit of a deeper dive into the history of some of these areas. So if you're interested in malaria, the history of malaria in the region, then boy, I think this will be right up your alley. So yeah.
Oh, good. Police, pay attention.
Yes, exactly. So I'm not going to take the report in order. I tried to group things logically together as my logic works anyway. So in summary, the finding of the report was that they agreed with the assessment of the Harrison report that the British should open 100,000 visas immediately for the Jewish DPs. And they said, I'm going to read a bunch of quotes from this, because I think it's relevant in a bunch of different areas. So this one section they wrote in the section called "The Position of Jews in Europe." They write, "Their pitiable condition has evoked a worldwide sympathy, but sympathy has so far taken the form only of providing them with the bare essentials of food, clothing, and shelter. It seems to them the only real chance of rebuilding their shattered lives and of becoming normal men and women again is that they're offered by the Jews living in Palestine." So that's the DPs basically say it, like there's no place else for us to go.
Right. That's pretty strong language. That's good. Yeah.
And should also note the report found that in reality, there were probably closer to 500,000 Jews that wanted to go to Palestine, and they were still only recommending the 100,000 the Harrison report analyzed, which made me wonder if the Harrison report had recommended 500,000 or 300,000, would they have just gone with whatever the Harrison recommendation was, or did they come to that independently?
That's a good question.
Who knows?
I mean, what did the world, you're not going to have an answer to this, but like, what did the world expect to happen to the rest of the Jews? Like, I always think about that. Where were they supposed to go? I mean, nobody was like, "Oh, come here. We love you." I mean, it's pretty shocking. I know.
Nobody. And at some point we'll do a report on, there was a separate conference earlier than this. I think it was called the Avion conference in France, where like 40 or 50 countries got together to figure out what to do with the Jews of Europe.
Yeah.
And the only country that said they would take them was Dominican Republic.
Yeah. We should have gone there.
Yeah, seriously. So anyway, but it's a good question. But to your point, one of the things that they bring up, which is particularly depressing, I would say, is that they talk about the need for restitution for the Jews, because everything had been stolen from them. Right. And they write, "A real obstacle, however, to individual restitution is that the attempt to give effect to this legislation is frequently a cause of active anti-Semitism."
Interesting.
So even if the Jews wanted to go back to their lives where everything had been stolen, and the people in government said, "We'll give it back to them," which, by the way, it's also important to remember, in a lot of the areas, in some of the areas, not all, but in a lot of the areas where Jews would have gone back, they were pretty much under military dictatorship.
Right.
And so even if these, pseudo governments wanted to put into effect legislation to give the Jews what had been stolen from them, that would have caused more anti-Semitism.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
There was
no winning here.
There was no winning. There was no option for the Jews to go back. And like we talked about in the Harrison report, the few Jews that wanted to go back to where they came from basically wanted to go to try to find their family.
Right.
That was, most of the Jews had no interest.
There were pogroms that happened, and Jews were killed after the Holocaust when they tried to go home. I mean, there's terrible stories about what happened post-war. Yep. So the Jews really were in a not great position, except that there was a country that they should have been able to go to, and the British weren't letting them. So hence these reports.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So like I said, so the recommendation of the report was that roughly 500,000 Jewish DPs wanted to go to the mandate area, but they recommended 100,000 to be admitted immediately as quickly as possible. And they say that no other country is willing to take them. So they just admit this in the report that, to your question, where do people want them to go?
Yeah.
Right. They didn't want them to go to Palestine.
Right.
No country wanted to take them. So I guess the idea was that they would just stay in the DP camps for the rest of their lives and do what? And they write in the report, quote, "We know of no country to which the great majority can go in the immediate future other than Palestine. Furthermore, that is where almost all of them want to go. There, they are sure they will receive a welcome denied them elsewhere. There, they hope to enjoy peace and rebuild their lives." And so that's interesting. That's what the report says, is that's what they should be allowed to do, is to go because no country wants them. They don't want to go anywhere else. And there's no place else they can really go to rebuild their lives.
When people wonder why Jews care about Israel, it's like, think about what we're saying right now, that our families had nowhere to go. And it's an inconceivable idea that you live in a world that is just not open and welcome to you, not because of you as an individual, but who you are as a collective. I mean, we can't live in a world anymore that doesn't have a Jewish country. And so it's just, I would never, ever want our people to be in that position again. I mean, it's so clear. It's almost impossible to think about what the world would be like I know. It'd be turning the clock back to, pre-1948. And it'd be the other thing, one more thing, and then I'll let you talk. But I also wonder, I've spent my whole life thinking about this, if my grandparents had chosen to go to Palestine rather than to Canada, our whole family would be so different for us. We would have been born and raised in Israel. We'd be Israelis. It's an interesting idea that my grandparents were part of that refugee community and trying to figure out where to go. And somehow, because they were stuck and couldn't go to Palestine, they ended up in Canada, only because they had no choice. So it's just just a weird stroke of historical luck or whatever.
You might be intermarried with a Sephardi or a Mizrahi.
Yeah, exactly.
You might be eating beans and rice on
exactly. What did you do, Bubby? No, I'm just kidding.
So those are kind of the findings of the report, but the rest of the report is actually, obviously that's the most important part of the report, but the rest of the report, I think the report is more interesting because from here, they kind of really analyze the on the ground situation of what's going on in the territory. So in one section, they summarize the Zionist agency in Palestine. And there's a couple of quotes I'll read here. Unquestionably, it has been a tremendous power for good and has been indispensable to the protection and progress. As pioneers in Palestine, the Jews have a record which they can be proud. In Palestine, there has been no expulsion of the indigenous population, and exploitation of cheap Arab labor has been vigorously opposed as inconsistent with Zionism.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
So right there, right, all of those stories, right, about Jews kicking Arabs off the land and using them for their cheap labor, like it's their slaves or whatever. This report says that's just
denying it.
Is not the situation, right? Wow. So that's number one.
Okay,
right? Is they really respect the work that the Zionists have done with the territory, and to some degree, right? Now it could be debated to the extent of this, but to some degree, they think that they've treated the Arabs at least not horribly, right? They don't go as far as say that, oh, they've taken them into their homes and have them at their Shabbat dinners or whatever. But at the very least, they haven't thrown them off their land, and they haven't treated them like indentured servants, at the very least, right? Which is oftentimes you hear that from a variety of people who criticize the founding of Israel. So next they get into the population of Palestine.
Okay.
And so this is pretty interesting. So this is where I start to do some research outside of the report, just to add some context.
Okay.
So during the period between 1922 and 1944, Jews increased from 13% to 31% of the population. And that's with the white paper restrictions.
Wow. Okay.
So even with those severe restrictions, now obviously there was, in all likelihood, a significant amount of illegal immigration going on, but that it goes without saying that the white paper severely restricted the number of Jews that could have potentially gone there.
Did you come across any data about like how, as the Zionists were, I hope I'm not jumping ahead, but as the Zionists were developing the land and building better infrastructure and schools, that more Arabs were moving into the land as well? It wasn't just Jews immigrating there?
Yes. So I do have some stuff on that.
Okay. Oh, good.
Yep.
Okay.
For sure. That's a big part of the story.
Yeah. Okay.
For sure.
Because we never really talk about that. So that's good. I'm happy to.
Yeah, for sure. That. So when they start talking about the population, so one thing to bear in mind, and this is from outside the report, that according to the British Mandate Census of 1922, there were 75 people per square mile living in the Mandate area. Okay. Which is nothing.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Now, in the paper, it says that the population density of the Mandate area is 179 people per square mile. Now, if you remove the desert area, the Negev, the Beersheba area, it's 336 people per square mile in the territory. Okay. Now, for context, here, I'll quiz you. What is the population density of Los Angeles?
I'm really bad at math. This is not fair. The population density of Los Angeles?
Take a guess.
Per square mile?
Per square mile.
I don't know. 1,000? I have no idea.
Oh, okay. 8,500.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. The population density of London is 14,000 people.
What?
Per square mile. The population density of Paris is 54,000 people.
What? Oh my God. Per square mile.
So when you talk about 336 people per square mile.
It was nothing. Right.
So I asked ChatGPT for some comps of that. So what did it come up with? Salt Lick, Kentucky has 316 people per square mile. And Anamoose, North Dakota has 369 people per square mile.
God. I've never even heard of those places.
Who has, right? But the point is, nobody lived here.
Right.
There was so when people talk about Jews kicking out 700, 7,500, 7,750,000 people. During the Civil War, during the War of Independence, etc. Whether that's true or not, which it's not true, but you're talking about a landmass where nobody lives. Right. And that 336 people per square mile was a massive increase from just about 20 years earlier.
Wow. That's so interesting.
So now you come to, and this will start to address the point you made earlier, was why. So one of the things the report says, I'll read this quote: "The high Arab rate of natural increase is accounted for by fertility, which is among the highest recorded in the world, and by the disappearance under the mandate of such counterbalancing factors as conscription for the Ottoman army and a high incidence of malaria."
Wow.
Okay, so the Ottoman army doesn't exist, so their people aren't being conscripted and dying in the wars, and the reduction of the incidence of malaria. Okay.
Wow.
So, all right. So if you're not on YouTube here, you should be listening to us on YouTube. But I'm going to be showing some pictures here. So, but I'll describe what the pictures are and read some of the quotes from the pages, because I found some stuff that's pretty interesting, I think. So first of all, as an overall comment, in the 1920s, malaria accounted for between 5 and 10% of all recorded deaths in the Mandate area.
Wow.
Now, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, because I mean, it's important to say that because Palestine at the time was kind of swampy, right? So there were a lot of bugs and mosquitoes, and that's how it spread. Is that correct?
Right. So let me
because when people describe Palestine before the Zionists showed up, it always sounds like it was a pretty much swamp shithole, if I can say. Sorry.
All right. Can you see this?
Yeah, I see the map.
Okay. So I'm going to quiz you again.
Okay.
What is this a map of? If I just showed it to you out of context, what would you think this is a map of? And I'll tell you the answer if you don't get it in a couple
of Israel. Do you mean like it's a map of Israel?
Very good. Yes, of Israel. It's of Israel. So I'll just describe to everyone what I'm showing ChayaLeah.
Okay, yeah. The shaded coastline.
Yeah. So
it's all the water areas.
So right. So down to around where Gaza is today.
Yeah.
Up to sort of just south of Haifa is this dark blue shade, and then the Jordan Valley and down the Jordan River down to the Red Sea is sort of this very dark blue shade. And in the rest of the country, there's a couple other smattering of areas, but overall, the rest of the country is sort of more light colored. So what is this? What do you think this map is?
I think it's related to water. Is it? Am I right?
Sort of. Yes.
Okay.
This is what this map is. It shows the incidence of malaria.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Within the regions.
Okay.
So if you look, right, so the dark blue areas are the high incidence malarial areas. The range of the blue area is between 50 and 100%.
Wow.
So in some of these territories, every single person had malaria.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
That is how bad this was. So there was an article in The Lancet, which is a medical journal from 1864, that's titled "The Fevers of Jerusalem." And it's an article about the rates of, and when they say the fevers at this time, what fevers meant was malaria.
Okay.
It says Jerusalem is one of the most unhealthy of cities, and fever is its principal disease.
Wow.
Okay. Now, also, mind you, Jerusalem was not one of the most infected areas.
Right. Because it's actually not it's not close to the water areas. Right. Yeah.
And even for Jerusalem, it was bad.
Yeah.
Okay?
Wow.
So this is from the British Mandate Department of Health from 1921. Malaria stands out as by far the most important disease in Palestine. For centuries, it has decimated the population, and it's an effective bar to the development and settlement of large tracts of fertile land. There are few regions actually free from it. So this is the British Mandate from 1921. And if you remember, World War I, this is right after the end of World War I.
Right.
So this is really very soon after the mandate concept was established and they took over the territory.
Huh.
So this is a report from Hadera. In 1890, a settlement was established in Hadera. By 1910, 210 out of 540 people had died of malaria.
My gosh.
Right. And in all likelihood, almost all of them contracted it. Right. It was just that, almost half of them died of it.
Wow.
Okay. So this is from on the opposite side in more of the Jordan Valley area, in an area called Basan. Mm-hmm. The villagers state not one child out of 10 born in the village reaches maturity.
Wow.
Because they die of malaria. And this is from 1922.
Oh my gosh.
So this is,
so it's a real problem.
This is literally a modern day plague.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Probably in the 10th plague, fewer firstborn Egyptians died than were dying from malaria in this territory. So the reason I asked you that question to start off with, one more thing. So malaria stands out as by far the most important disease in Palestine. Sorry, this was a repeat. My mistake.
No, it's okay.
This is where I wanted to come back to. Okay. So this is the first image I showed you.
Right.
Right. The reason I asked you what it was because it looks like this image.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the image I'm showing here on the right, if you're not watching on YouTube, is the partition plan from the UN of Israel.
Right.
It is almost exactly the malarial areas.
That's so interesting. So why? Wait, is it because, I don't want to jump ahead, but is it because Israel figured out, the Zionists figured out how to treat the land and how to deal with the malaria? And so those became the choice parts. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes. So the point here is that when people talk all about the land and, what percentage of the population of the Jews got what percentage of the land and yada, yada, yada. It's important to note that the areas the Jews got were what was originally malarial land.
Right.
And when people talk about malarial land, it's not just like there was some malaria.
Yeah.
In some of these areas, it had 100% rate.
It's crazy.
Of malarial infection. And the rest they got was desert.
Wow.
So to say that the Jews did not get the choice areas would be a total understatement.
Yeah. It's one of the interesting things when you go to the West Bank and because the West Bank is the more green, lush, part, and it has hills, and you look over, you can see from the West Bank into Israel because it's, higher. It's just very interesting how it was split up.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Exactly. Anyway. So back to your question about conquering it. So there's a very important person some of you probably know, I'll introduce everyone else to, named, ironically, I guess, Israel Klinger. Mm. And so he was born in Ukraine in 1888. He immigrated to the United States and earned a PhD in bacteriology from Columbia in 1915. And he became a microbiologist and a general public health researcher who specialized in bacteriology and tropical diseases. Wow. And fortunately for us, was also a big Zionist. Oh. So he went to the Mandate area in 1920 and started to study the area to figure out what can be done with these swamplands. And so he put together a prescription for this malarial reduction program, which included, like you said, draining swamps and stagnant water. Mm-hmm. He introduced, I learned a new word here, larviciding, oiling and larviciding water services, which are ways that you kill mosquito larvae.
Wow.
Introducing larivivivis fish that would eat the larva.
Really?
And just general community education.
Wow.
So after putting these things in place, by the 1960s, malaria was almost completely eradicated from the territory.
Wow.
So
aren't mosquitoes the number one killer of humans? Like it's the most deadly animal, right? Or whatever.
I'm pretty sure.
However you want to call it. I think that's how it is. Yeah.
And I think by far.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they're so disgusting.
When I went to South Africa last year, they have malaria in some areas of South Africa. And I didn't get any like shots or anything before we went. And I was like obsessed the whole time I was there about not getting bitten. I was so stressed out. But yeah, anyway, people still live with malaria. I mean, it's
just, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Unfortunately.
So, when they say in the reports that the Arabs have a very high rate of fertility, right? It's important to note that one of the reasons they note is the reduction of the incidence of malaria, which is directly attributable to the Zionists and specifically Israel Klinger, who developed the methodology to eliminate malaria.
That's so interesting.
So that's an important context, I think, to all of this, is that when you look at the population, and that's the one thing a lot of people will talk about within the context of the overall, partition, is the rate of the population increase of the Arabs in the territory. And there's reason for that.
Yeah.
So
it's so interesting because it's, what do you do when, I mean, this is the broader question about the land always, is like two people, one land, and the benefits that the Zionists were providing were not just for the Jews. Obviously, they were also for the Arabs, and thankfully so. I mean, I wouldn't want the Arabs to not have these benefits of not, things like, being saved from malaria, et cetera. But in the end, it comes back to bite us all these years later, where we have, hundreds of thousands of Palestinians claiming, and now millions, claiming the land is theirs, when it's like, I want to scream, but we saved you. Like, what are you asking from us? So I don't know.
And I'll talk about this too. And it's also that, when we talked about the population density, and I'll mention this in a little bit, when the Arabs claimed they lived in the territory for 1,000 years, right?
Yeah.
Where exactly?
Right.
Not in these areas. They didn't, because everyone in these areas died.
Right.
Right. So they didn't live in the deserts. They didn't live in the malarial ridden areas, which are the areas that the Jews got for Israel. Yeah. So now we'll get to a section that I think is actually kind of beautifully written. So I'm going to read this. It's a little bit of a long section.
Okay.
But it is, it's from a section called The Jewish Attitude. And it reads, the Jew who lives and works in the national home is deeply aware both of his achievements and how much more could have been achieved with a wholehearted support by the mandatory power. His political outlook is thus a mixture of self-confident pride and bitter frustration. Pride that he has turned the desert and swamp into a land flowing with milk and honey. Frustration because he's denied opportunity of settlement in 9/10 of that Eretz Israel, which he considers his own by right. Pride that he has disproved the theory that Jews cannot build a healthy community based on the tilling of soil. Frustration that the Jew is barred entry to the national home, where that community is now in being. Pride that he is taking part in a bold collective experiment. Frustration because he feels himself hampered by British officials whom he often regards as less able than himself. Pride because in Palestine, he feels himself at last a free member of a free community. Frustration because he lives under not a freely elected government, but under an autocratic, if humane, regime.
Wow, that is beautiful. And also so resonant today. I mean, if you wanted to call the moment we're in now, we could call it pride and frustration. I mean,
That's a good point.
It's literally what we're going through every day right now. It's like yesterday was an extremely, I mean, I don't know when we'll release this. It might be in a few weeks, but like yesterday was an extremely frustrating, painful day. We had the terrorist attack in Jerusalem. We lost 4 soldiers, like horrible day. But then today, Israel like killed Hamas leadership in Qatar. So pride. So every day it's like we live with this dichotomy between like pride and frustration still. That's actually really, I like that.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll name my book.
Pride and Frustration.
Pride and Frustration.
It's actually not bad. Not a bad name. And so now we get to the section called the Arab attitude.
Okay.
So I think there's one sort of sentence here that sort of summarizes the whole section. The objectives of this and of all Arab parties in Palestine are the immediate stoppage of Jewish immigration, the immediate prohibition of the sale of land to Jews, and the concession of independence to a state in which the Arab majority would be dominant. So that's it. That's their stance.
Wow.
No Jewish state, no more Jews. Everything is ours, and we're the dominant government.
Right.
That's it.
I mean, I don't blame them because they saw the writing on the wall based on what they were witnessing with their own eyes. But you know, such is life. I mean, I don't know. It's hard. It's a hard one. Like, I want to feel compassion for the Palestinian narrative, right? For the Arab narrative, because many of them did live there for generations and did have homes. And it's just a painful reality that war means displacement and suffering, you know?
Yeah, but it didn't have to be this way.
It did not have to. That's right. It did not have to.
It was a choice, and the history is of repeated choices.
Yeah,
but it didn't have to be this way.
That's true.
And they write in the report that the white paper in 1939 only met the Arabs part way in their demands. Now, I'll reiterate that the white paper said that there were 75,000 Jewish immigrants allowed over 5 years. The one point I didn't mention earlier is that any subsequent Jewish immigration is subject to the approval of any government of the Arabs.
Oh, okay.
Hold on one second.
Yeah, no problem.
Hey, what's going on? All right, sorry about that.
Everything
I will
okay?
just, yeah. Ask Dan to cut that. And we're back. Sorry about that. We had a slight disruption from a very important phone call. So where were we? What were we talking about?
We were talking about.
Oh, wait, sorry, we were talking about the immigration. Okay. All right. So
yes. Okay.
Right, we'll cut this. All right. So the Jews were allowed 75,000 immigrants over 5 years, and any further immigration would be they would require the sign off of
the government,
Arab, whatever Arab government there was. Right. So they say they met them halfway, that the white paper only met them halfway. But, I guess halfway to zero is pretty damn close.
Right. Do they mention anything about the Arab leadership and their attitudes toward Jews? Does that come up at all?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. Their basic stance on the Arab leaders is that they are quote unquote spiritually neutral.
What does that mean?
So they say the Grand Mufti Haj Amin al-Husseini, for those of you who don't know, you might have seen pictures of him from World War II meeting with Hitler,
right?
Because we now know he was, if the Germans had conquered Palestine, that they were going to set up concentration camps and death camps in the territory, like the Germans had in Germany and Poland and throughout Europe.
Can you imagine Auschwitz in Israel? I mean, that would be really something.
It would be something for sure. But they basically say that, we have no strong, we don't hate the Jews. We just don't want them here. Essentially is their take, which is a take, I would say. It is one way to look at the situation.
Right.
Would be that.
Right.
Even though it's belied by nearly all available evidence, but that aside. So that's kind of the take on the Arab attitude and mindset.
By the way, we should recommend that if anybody wants to read more about the Arab side of this, the book Palestine 1936, which is a little later than where we're at right now in the story, but Oren Kessler does a really good job of describing sort of the leadership in the Arab world and how the different characters come to play the roles that they did. It's a very good book if anyone's interested.
Yes, and I'm going to talk about the violence in the area also.
Okay.
In a minute, but so one other, I think, relevant quote from the Arab perspective that's relevant is, and so the committee is trying to work with the Arabs to see, we want to let in however many Jews to territory. Are there any Jews, any kind, shape, flavor, height, weight that you'll be willing to take? And what the Arabs say is, even if the certificates for admission were confined to old men and women and to children rescued from German death camps, in short, absolute unqualified refusal of the Arabs to acquiesce to the admission of a single Jew to Palestine is the outstanding feature of Arab politics today.
Wow. Jeez.
So it was zero, they were not interested in having any Jew of any sort.
Right.
None. So that was their stance. So that's what the committee was working with, was one side that wanted essentially unlimited immigration and one side that wanted literally zero immigration.
Right.
None. So why does the status quo exist? So what they write is the Jews in Palestine are convinced that Arab violence paid, and this is where we're going to get into some of that stuff that Orrin Kessler covers in Palestine 1936.
Good.
The Jews in Palestine are convinced that Arab violence paid. Throughout the Arab Rising, the Jews in the national home, despite every provocation, obeyed the orders of their leaders and exercised a remarkable self-discipline. They shot, but only in self-defense. They rarely took reprisals on the Arab population. They state bitterly that the reward for this restraint was the conference and the white paper of 1939. The mandatory power, they argued, yielded to force, cut down immigration, and thus caused the deaths of thousands of Jews in Hitler's gas chambers.
Mm. So just to reiterate, so the commission made up of half British, half American officials or whatever are saying that the Jews at this time were behaving well, right? The Zionists were following the rules. They were only acting in self-defense. This is not like a piece of Jewish propaganda that we would teach in our schools, right? Like, is that what I'm hearing? I mean, am I hearing this correctly?
I would say up until the point of the white paper.
Okay. Oh, I see. Okay. And then things changed because they got desperate, the Jews.
Yeah.
Okay.
And even there were certain types of Jews, right? Like the Irgun.
Right. They were the more militant.
Right.
Flavor.
So there were certain groups of Jews who were more confrontational, we'll say.
Right.
But up until the point of the white paper, the Jews trusted the British to do the right thing.
Okay.
And they were, they did not do the right thing. And
they felt betrayed. Right. They were betrayed by the white paper.
Exactly.
It was shocking to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like
in a moment when they really needed the British government to pull through for them, they completely screwed them over.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And it says the Arabs who had recourse to violence received substantial concessions, while the Jews who had put their faith in the mandatory were compelled to accept what they regard as a violation of the spirit of the letter of the mandate. So just to cover some of the biggest events, the most well-known events of this period leading up to the mandate, you had the Tel Hai was probably one of the earliest events where 8 Jews were killed. You had the Nebi Musa riots, where 5 Jews were killed and 200 were injured. With the Jaffa riots, where 47 Jews were killed. You had the 1929 Palestine riots, or the Western Wall riots, where 133 Jews were killed. You had the Hebron riots, the Safed riots, and then you had the major one being the Arab Revolt that starts in 1936, where somewhere between 400 and 500 Jews are murdered.
Right.
And so this is all the violence leading up to, and remember, this is all pre-1939 white paper.
Right.
So the belief of the Jews in the territory that the British bent to the violence is very well founded. I mean, it's very clear. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah. The violence worked.
Exactly. So,
I mean, is it just that I know it's maybe outside the scope of our conversation, but like, were the British just not interested in getting into it with the Arabs? Like, was it too difficult for them? I mean, the British were being pulled already by so many different fights that were going on and all around their empire and, especially in Europe. And like, is it just that it was too difficult, or do you think the British actually have a sympathy for the Arabs that they just didn't have for the Jews?
I think it was more practical than that.
Okay.
I think it's important to remember that at the end of World War II, the British were absolutely broke.
Right.
Like they were absolutely broke. They had no money.
Right.
And at this point, there was a massive increase in a country's dependence on oil. And having access to the Middle East oil at this point was really important to the British.
Right.
So, I mean, look, it is, I don't totally blame the British.
Yeah.
Honestly. Do I think they could have done better? Sure. Do I think the white paper was a disaster? Without a doubt.
Right.
But they have a practical reality of their situation at the end of World War II, which was things were very bad for the British. And so, I mean, they're doing what they can to keep afloat. And now you can argue they took this mandate.
Yeah.
They didn't have to do it. Right. But, I guess you break it, you buy it.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. I mean, and I mean, would you, I don't know, like, I guess we could ask a scholar in this, but I mean, I'm just curious if there was an underlying thread of anti-Semitism, at least amongst some of the British elite, who
without doubt.
I think there was, I mean, based on the reading and stuff that I've done over my lifetime, I think there definitely was some underlying anti-Semitism.
Absolutely.
And it's just an interesting like time where, fighting World War II and this episode kind of intersect, and the British are like at the center of both of those, and the Jews are at the center of both of those. So it's just an interesting moment where they kind of have to face their anti-Semitism head on, and it's kind of interesting for the Brits.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's interesting if you look at like one of the really important documents here is previous to this was Sykes-Picot. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
And the British guy on the side of that was David Sykes. And he was a supporter of the Zionists, but he was a supporter of the Zionists because he believed in the global Jewish conspiracy that Jews run the world. Seriously.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So it's crazy that, and it's interesting about how like Chaim Weissman, he kind of leverages that where he can, So I mean, is that a form of anti-Semitism? Without a doubt. But
it's useful. It's useful anti-Semitism. I mean,
the goal's the goal, right? And so, whatever you need to do is what you do.
That's so funny. Totally.
But so yes, there were definitely, I think, many anti-Semites in the British government, and I mean, and like around the world.
Right.
Correct. America certainly didn't have their shortage of anti-Semites at the time.
Yeah, right. True.
So on the on the Arab side, there's an interesting section here where the Arabs are lamenting the fact that they don't believe the Westerners understand their cause. And they write that they feel that the Jewish case is well understood and is well portrayed in Washington and London, but they have no means comparable to affect policy. Right. And so they feel like they're already starting behind the 8 ball in trying to get the Western powers compared to the Jews. Right. Because the Jews are, the Jews, they're Jews, that have been working with both governments for many years. And so they
living there and
and they had more of a platform to get their story across. Right.
That's a good point.
Now, well, not really.
Oh, okay.
and here's why I'll say it's not really a good point. One of the other points that the Arabs bring up in this document, which they write about, is that they point out that the surrounding Arab states have all been granted independence. Right. So think about this for a second. Right. When at the start of World War I, right, this whole territory is Ottoman, right? It's just Ottoman, ruled by local clans or whatever, right?
It's tribal, right?
Right, exactly. Now, when they say that the other countries have been granted independence, right? It's after World War I. You have the creation of Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Yemen, Syria, Jordan, and Lebanon, right? None of those countries exist at the end of World War I. So this is all in about 20-year period where all these countries are created, right? So square the circle for me. Explain to me how the Arabs believe that the Western powers don't understand their position on this And yet the entire territory, right? Now in square miles, Saudi Arabia, 830,000 square miles.
Wow.
Iraq, 169,000 square miles. Yemen's 75,000 square miles. Syria's 72,000 square miles.
Right.
Jordan is 35,000 square miles. Lebanon is 4,000 square miles. Okay. That's over 98% of the landmass.
Wow.
Is given to these Arab countries.
Right.
So explain to me the Arab position that the Western powers didn't understand them.
Right.
And that they didn't have a way to get their message across to the Western powers when 98% of the territory was given to them.
Right. Right. That's
it doesn't make any sense.
Right. That's a good point.
It makes no sense. Israel ends up getting, 80 at the point of the partition, 8,700 square miles.
Wow.
Out of, over a million square miles.
So, I mean, the logical conclusion here then is that the leadership that the Arabs in Palestine had were ineffective compared to the leaders in the other parts of the Arab world. I mean, is that right? Or is there...
You could argue that.
Right.
That would be one argument. Now, I think there's probably other reasons, which we can...
Well, also that piece of land is particularly contentious, right? Like maybe no one cares about Saudi Arabia, although religious, I mean, the truth is that's a very hot topic for Muslims. I mean, because Saudi Arabia is the holiest piece of land. So I don't know, that was probably very contentious also, but nothing like Israel,
Yeah. Well, it was, I don't want to speak out of turn on the history of Saudi Arabia, but originally it was given to this guy Sharif, Omar Sharif, I believe it was, and I'll fact check that.
Yeah,
but who had to some degree or another worked with the British to get some of the Arab armies to fight on the side of the British against the Ottomans.
I see.
Now, he wasn't very successful in doing that.
Is that the movie Lawrence of Arabia? Is that?
Well, yes. So that is part of it. Now, Lawrence of Arabia, I believe, has been determined to be a complete fabulist.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. I think almost everything he said was a lie about his experiences there.
Really?
But we should probably get somebody to talk about that. But that's my understanding is that it's not like he was not.
It's not a real story.
Yeah, no, he really wanted to talk up his abilities there and his importance in this war. But so then this Sharif was overthrown by Ibn Saud.
Right.
I think in 1932, sometime around there. And so that's how you have Saudi. But before the territory was called the Hajj, the Haz, and it became Saudi Arabia after Ibn Saud conquered the territory from him.
Wow.
But so this point of that the Western powers didn't understand the Arab perspective is belied by the fact that over the course of the previous 20 years, give or take 25 years, all the land had been partitioned between various Arab fiefdoms.
Yeah, interesting.
So one of the other things that the report does is it emphasizes this gap between the Arabs and the Jews. And I think you kind of touched on this a little bit previously. And so in the Arab section, they say that the Arab case is based on the fact that Palestine is a country, I'm using my quotation fingers, is a country which the Arabs have occupied for more than 1,000 years. And they deny the Jewish historical claims to the territory. Okay. So the report in this section now sort of starts to spell out the deficiencies, I'll say deficiencies in sort of the Arab population and governance. So one of the things that they talk about is the lack of education. Right.
Big problem.
Yeah. So even in wealthy towns like Haifa, where Arabs lived, half the boys and the majority of girls received zero education.
Wow, really?
And overall, only about 1 in 8 Arab girls received any education at all. And they write, the lamentable condition of Arab education is a real cause for discontent. This discontent is increased by the contrast with the opportunities offered to the Jewish child. Jewish education in Palestine is financed by the Jewish community and by the fees which Jewish parents can afford to pay. Okay.
Wow.
So we'll leave that. We'll come back to it. Right. That's one point. Okay. So they talk about nationalism, right? So obviously, we read previously about the committee's thoughts on the Zionist committee and how they had done an outstanding job of building a society for their people. Okay. About the Arabs, they write, they have developed no such democracy as have the Jews. That their divisions have not been overcome and a formally organized community developed is in part the result of a less acutely self-conscious nationalism than is to be found among the Jews.
So the Jews are more nationalistic than the Palestinians. Right. Okay.
Right. The Jews have a combining force. There is like a center of gravity that pulls the Zionists into it. And there is not one for, this is what they're saying. Right.
This is what the report is saying.
For the Arabs.
But it's probably because the Arabs are more tribal. The nationalism comes later. I guess I would guess that they're much more of we know that they're much more of a tribal society.
I would personally argue that Arab nationalism is based exclusively on keeping Jews out.
Right. Yeah. No, and that's not wrong.
There's only so much that can attract people to.
Right.
That's a negative identity is not really an identity.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, it's worked for them for the last bit of time, but maybe there's a way to maybe that's the answer to changing the Middle East is to change that narrative. Anyway,
you could argue. You could argue that.
My hopeful way of thinking. Yeah.
Yes. So overall, they write about how one of the big causes of friction is education, is the lack of nationalism, the lack of social services and hospitals, and that one of the focus areas should be developing the Arab economic and educational and political advancements in the territory to more have it match with the Jews. Okay. So here's my take on that situation.
Okay.
The Arabs say, I read a quote earlier, that they have been in the territory for 1,000 years.
Right.
Okay. Whose fault is it? They don't have schools or democracy or social services or hospitals.
Yeah.
So, according to them, the Jews have only been there since 1881 or, whatever.
Right.
And they've been there for thousands of years. Right. So is it the Jews' fault that they don't have these things?
Right.
You're
making such an inconvenient point for them. It's a really inconvenient reality that they were just, I hate to say it. This isn't a moral judgment. Well, maybe it is, but they were behind, they weren't advanced.
Yeah, it's not a moral judgment at all.
Right.
It's just, their argument defies logic.
Yeah.
You can't make both of those arguments. You can't say we've been here for 1,000 years and woe is me. The Jews who have been immigrating here for the past 60 years are the cause of us not having these institutions. But you can't make the argument.
An interesting question that I would ask is, and this is kind of an uncomfortable question, but how much of it is because the Jews or Zionists who came over were European, right, and had adopted many, behaviors and norms from the Europeans. But then I would also look at the Jewish communities in the Middle East, who did care about education. I mean, you can see, Jewish Yemenite communities that, had very strong Jewish education, and Moroccans, and I mean, all of the different, the Iraqi Jews, and they were not like floundering in that capacity, So like, is it the nature of the Jews? Is it the nature of being European? Is it just the cultural difference? Like, it's an interesting question to think about.
It's a very good question.
Yeah.
It's a very good question. But I think overall what this caused was forcing the Arabs to look in the mirror and see they had these people coming over who just got there.
Right.
And now all of a sudden, all their kids can read. They have hospitals. They have a burgeoning economy, and they've been there for allegedly 1,000 years,
right?
And they don't have these things. So I could see how that would, that would cause some discontent amongst the people and the leaders.
Yep.
So that's what I would say are the highlights of the report. I would say. So what's the outcome of this? So, like I said, the committee recommended 100,000 Jews being let into the territory immediately. President Truman wrote, and I'll read his quote. I am, in all caps, I am very happy, uncap.
Wow.
That the request which I made for the immediate admission of 100,000 Jews into Palestine has been unanimously endorsed by the Anglo-American Committee of Inquiry. The transference of these unfortunate people should now be accomplished with the greatest dispatch. I am also pleased that the committee recommends, in effect, the abrogation of the White Paper of 1939, including existing restrictions on immigration and land acquisition, to permit the further development of the Jewish national homeland.
Wow.
So Truman's like, great, this is what I wanted.
Right. Interesting.
So if we'll think back, we'll turn back the clock, we'll remember that this commission was started by Clement Attlee, who was the Prime Minister of the UK. He rejected it.
You're kidding.
Nope.
After all that, he rejected it? I'm so frustrated.
And as a matter of fact, even after this, British officials continued to intercept Aliyah Bet, so like illegal immigrant ships, and detained the Jews in Cyprus.
Oh my God.
So this is after the Anglo-American Committee had already come out with their recommendation. British were still intercepting ships.
Can you just remind me what year this is? Is this?
So the report, the Anglo-American Committee report, came out in April of 46.
Okay. So we're in April. Okay. Right.
And so of course, he kicks the ball down the road, says, we're going to have a follow-up conference called the London Conference, which kicked off in September of 46 with Arabs and Jews. And so the Arabs send delegations from all over all the various Arab countries. The Jews refuse to attend. The Zionists refuse to attend because they say, like, you said this committee was going to make the recommendation. They made the recommendation. You've now ignored it.
Yeah.
Why should we believe that this next conference is going to result in anything worthwhile for us? Right. We've jumped through your hoops.
Yeah.
And
good for them.
And so they didn't attend. So then the British recommend what's called the Morrison-Grady plan, which creates cantons in the area.
What's that? What are cantons?
Like states, like Emirates.
Okay.
Kind of.
Okay. Yeah.
I think this was probably before these were called Emirates. I'm assuming, I don't know.
Right.
But so there's sort of the cantonization of these.
That's interesting.
Of the territory, but it'll remain under British rule. And they will not open visas for Jews.
Oh my God. So what's the point? Right.
So so both sides
Yeah.
reject it. They have a second round of talks that start in January of 47, where both sides attend. There's no progress made. And then after this, the British Foreign Secretary, Ernest Bevin, announces to the House of Commons that they're at a stalemate, and the issue of Palestine will be referred to the UN. So that
was it. The British gave up.
They gave up.
Yeah. Well, good.
And yes,
it was time.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like I said at the start, I'm fascinated. This report isn't more well known because this really is the last legitimate grasp of any semblance of anything that could result in a two-state solution.
Right.
Like there's this is the obstinance of the Arabs to not allow old men and children and old women and children into the territory. Yeah, it just shows that there was no negotiation. There was no meeting anybody halfway. The British felt like they missed the mark with a 39 white paper. Yeah, which essentially ended Jewish immigration to the territory.
Right.
So well, but I think what this report I think is interesting for is more than we know the history now, so we all know where this goes. But I think what's more interesting about this report is sort of the picture that it takes of the status quo at this moment in time.
Right. 100%. Yeah, because we could tell ourselves stories. Both sides have stories, but to have an independent group come and analyze the situation on the ground is really helpful. And it's helpful to understand what the reality was for the Jews and for the Palestinians, to be honest. Like honestly, I never got that in my education, right? I didn't really have an understanding of who they were, where they came from. I didn't really care. But the more I understand what the Palestinian narrative is, it really helps to understand where we are today. Not that I think their narrative is correct, but when you get it, it explains the situation. Otherwise, it just doesn't make any sense what's going on. I mean, it still doesn't, but it does help explain it to a degree. I had I don't know if do you want to say something before?
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that last night I moderated a panel of Arabs from the Middle East. We had a Bahrainian, a Moroccan, a Lebanese, and one Israeli and an Egyptian. And it was just really interesting to hear their perspective because they're a mix of Muslims and Christians, and one Christian, the rest were Muslim. And they were, what I appreciated the most about the conversation was that it was the first time I heard a group of people who weren't Jewish saying, this is not Israel's problem alone. Like, Israel is not going to solve this issue on their own. They are not responsible for an unstable Middle East on their own. It's the rest of the countries that have to participate. Israel needs partners, and Israel needs bridges. And it just felt really good to hear that coming from people from other countries and acknowledging that, because I feel like Israel's just alone all the time. And that even in America, we have this sort of assumption that Israel has the power to change everything in the Middle East if they would just, right? Whatever you think they should just do. And the reality is that there are lots of different countries, lots of different people, lots of leaders, and Israel is not the one responsible for the whole Middle East. And that was a very powerful message for me last night that I really appreciated, and
that's great.
I'll say one thing, which is going to maybe be a little bit uncomfortable, but, they didn't really talk about the Palestinians at all. They never really mentioned them. And then somebody in the audience asked directly, you could talk about all these things about, building, expanding the Abraham Accords, et cetera. But what about the Palestinian issue? And there was such a disgust almost from the panelists with the Palestinians at this point. It was really fascinating. I felt almost no sympathy for them at all. They didn't even utter one word of sympathy for the Palestinians. And in a room full of Jews who are like grappling with this, like this war and what we're doing in Gaza and this and that. It was really refreshing to hear, like, listen, you make choices like this. You started this war. What did you think was going to happen? Like, you don't have leaders who care about you. You make the worst choices every time. Like, the Egyptian guy said outright, he's like, every single year, Egypt has a summit with leaders from Fatah and leaders from Hamas to try and build a unity government to see what they can do. And every single year they manage to make it fall apart and leave with nothing better. So the reality is that Israel's in a tough spot because they don't have partners in the Palestinian world. So sounds pretty similar to 1946. Yeah, exactly. They just don't have the leaders to understand what to do for them. I feel bad for the Palestinians in a way, but they didn't make the situation right. They didn't make it, and it's not their choice to be indoctrinated, right? Either, right. It's like when the books they're translated into your are brought into your schools or translated in Arabic or the protocols of the Others of Zion and Mein Kampf, and it's treated as not as farcical, but as fact. What prayer do you have to grow up with a realistic view of the situation, right? A practical view of the solution. I know. Well, I know we're going long, but I do want to say one more thing, if I can. That the Moroccan. One of the things that this organization does, Sharaka, that I dealt with last night, is their main thing is that they take Arabs from around the region to Israel, almost like birthright, and give them like 10 days or whatever to like learn and experience Israel. They also take Arabs to Auschwitz. And the Moroccan in the group, a guy named Youssef, was telling me that he didn't say this in the panel. We went out to dinner after, and he was telling me that he took the mayor of the third largest city in Morocco. I forgot what it's called, Tangiers, maybe, which is the third largest city. Yeah, I think it's the third largest city in Morocco. He took the mayor to Auschwitz, and the mayor like broke down. He's like, I didn't know, I didn't believe, I didn't, and he said, we need to implement Holocaust education in every school in our city. And that's what they're doing now. And it's like, this is the kind of change that actually will make a difference. It's not the West pressuring Israel every 5 seconds, about what to do. It's about these kinds of meaningful changes. And, I kind of jokingly said to him, I'm like, who cares about the Holocaust anymore? We have so much Holocaust fatigue. And he said, I know what you mean. He's like, in the West, you do have a lot of Holocaust fatigue. He said, but in the Arab world, we really have to root Jewish history around the Holocaust right now, because otherwise none of the story of Israel makes sense for any of the Arabs. And so it was just an interesting way of looking at it, and sort of to see how they're trying to at least, place Israel in the, in the story of the Middle East. It's fascinating stuff. That's very interesting. Yeah. It's, I guess the more things change, the more they stay the same. I know. It's exactly the same. What did we say? Pride and frustration. It's like our pride. That's right. Pride and frustration. Exactly. This is the story of our people. That's a good title for a book. That's a good title for all of Jewish history. Paul Johnson could have renamed History of the Jews Pride and Frustration. It's true. It's true. So, so hopefully people liked this episode of me doing my history. Thank you for that thing. If you like this, tell us. We can do more of this stuff. If you hate it, you can tell us. Don't tell us. No. I can stop doing it. No, don't tell us. I can't handle negative feedback. Only positive feedback, please. Only give ChayaLeah positive feedback about her. Exactly. If you have issues with me, I'm open to change. I don't want any negative about anything. I can't handle any negative about anything. Just everything positive. All right. Thank you for all everybody. That. Yeah, for sure. It was fun. Yeah. Again, if you like it, let us know. If you don't, that's fine. You can just send me a personal email. Oh my God. And go from there. Thanks, everybody. Bye.